Hi, this is Ron Martinson of ronmarkblog.com, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Nikon D5. I was a big fan of several of the previous D-series Nikon bodies, especially the D4S, which was one of the best I've tested. So I was super excited to test out this camera. We'll start by just doing a quick overview of this camera. As you can tell, there's a lot of cool programmable buttons on the front now. Even all three of these are programmable. It's one addition from the D4S. And you'll notice that over here on the side, you have a redundant shutter button. If we start with autofocus, if I tap the button on the side, and you'll see that I can go between single shot and continuous mode. And that's where things start getting interesting. Continuous has auto, single point with 25 surrounding, 72 surrounding, and 153 surrounding. Now, I had some real interesting results with these options, so read my written review for more information about them. There's also the 3D option, groups, which is similar to what you see on like a Canon 7D and Canon 1DX. Same concept. Nikon has the same thing, so it's basically a cluster of focus points. And then back to auto. And then single, you just go between single shot, group, and auto. For ISO, again, things get very interesting. Right now I'm in the auto ISO mode, and I can choose a minimum ISO, and I can turn off that. And I can go all the way up. And then we start going into the high 3, high 7, high 5. Again, I'll talk more about these on my written review. But basically, you can come in and set a default for your minimum ISO. And I usually go set it at 100 for most of my real shooting scenarios. So you see that it's auto, and based on the current conditions, pointing at a black blanket with a 70 to 200 lens, I've got ISO 1100, so it's using at f2.8. Battery life so far in testing has been really great. Metering, all of the Nikons, you have basically active matrix, which is similar to evaluate on Canon, and then you have spot or center weighted. I've had some interesting results with the metering as well, which again I'll discuss on my blog. And as I previously showed, you have different camera modes, and you of course have bracketing. In bracketing, you change and then how many frames, so up to 9 frames. Here on the dial, various options including mirror lockup, timer, quiet, high speed, low speed, and single shot. Now I'd like to show you how quickly you can format. There's about 136 images on here. Come up here and press both of the format buttons. Format. See, format just right away disappears. No images. So there's really no wait. One of the great things about Nikon cameras is that all these buttons are hard buttons. You're able to get to things very quickly without having to fiddle with menus or reprogramming buttons to set them the way that you want. There's a lot of hard physical buttons. Specifically, the autofocus options being available here. You can quickly switch between autofocus and manual and press this button in to change between autofocus modes. And then on the side you have all of your video and data transfer options. On the back, again, typical Nikon, lots of buttons, another programmable button that by default works with the LAN, but you can also program that for whatever you want. And then info button, I button, redundant. So when I'm holding this way, I've got access to a joystick here. When I'm holding this way, I've got access to a joystick here, which is really nice. Same with the AF on buttons being available in both places, as well as the dial. So really comfortable to use in both the landscape orientation as well as the portrait orientation. Inside, for this one, I've chosen to use the CF cards because that's what I have. So you have dual dedicated CF rather than the mix between XQD and CF. So that's great for people that prefer this format. It's extremely fast. I'm using SanDisk Extreme Pro 90 megabytes per second cards in this particular case, but I also was using Lexar 1000X cards, and those have been great. I haven't had any problems with those. You have live view options here, and it's just basically your typical Nikon setup, just with more buttons available to you. Now I want to talk to you about the rear panel. So if I press the info button, of course you see typical settings menu. One thing that I'll point out is that since I don't have a lens, you're going to see f0. This is just because of the video. And when I do my playback, I'll talk about these images more on my blog, but I used a full auto AF and a evaluate metering. And the metering kind of did funny things. Sometimes it chose this bright patch in the back to meter on, which made the images very dark. As I go through the images, they get darker and darker. And then randomly, even though I'm in the same spot, it starts picking, see, look at this, just between these two, it starts picking different brightnesses. And so this was one of the challenges I had with this camera, was the metering was very bizarre. Really no rhyme or reason. I haven't changed metering modes, I haven't really changed positions, and it just randomly decides to pick light from the background in the column sometimes, and other times it doesn't. You also have live view, which one of the features it has now is the touch point. So this will allow you in just the picture mode to point to a spot and then push the shutter release to focus. And then in video, as you tap a different place, it's supposed to focus. But in practice, I didn't find that to be very effective. So, as my subject moved around and I would tap different places, the focus was fairly slow and the results were very poor. Now, what we're going to do is a little performance test here. And we're going to be with both the lens and the body set to manual focus, so there's no focus hunting or anything that comes into play. Manual mode, and we're going to just choose a random 1600 ISO. It doesn't really matter for this type of test, just to show what the buffer can do. And so this is set to full RAW. There's no JPEG, just RAW, and it's uncompressed. And so I'm going to go ahead and play this guy. And you'll see this counts down. Okay, and I'm going to just stop there because what I'm trying to do is show how many shots. We got 78 frames in that burst. I've got as many as 79, and that's pure RAW. I'm going to do it one more time. And this time, I'm going to hold on to the shutter until it just completely bogs down. Okay, so it's still green and writing. Can't see it very well, so I'll just tell you when it's done here. Writing. The display off. Okay, done. And so that's 200 images before it finally stopped and said, I'm done. Pretty impressive. And again, the card used here is simply a 90 megabytes per second UDMA 7 16 gigabyte SanDisk card. So depending on the card you use, you may actually get better performance than that. For this burst, I'm going to do just JPEG fine, no RAW. Let's see what it can do. And you'll notice this is just alternating between 88, 89. I don't see it dropping below. Okay, so now it finally dropped below into the 60s, 50s, and so on. And so once it gets, I think, around the 200 mark, it stops, and then I have to let up and press again. But you can pretty much go on all day long with this. In this short period of time, buffer's already filled up or flushed out. I shot 411 images. I could have shot more. So it's essentially unlimited with JPEG. For this test, I'm going to do RAW plus JPEG fine. So uncompressed RAW plus JPEG fine in burst mode. So the first set, still writing, waiting for the green light to turn off, and still writing or still flushing. Okay, now it's done. It got 67 images. But again, that's RAW plus JPEG, so really twice as many. Okay, so that was RAW plus JPEG. It's flushing. And let's see how many shots it gets. Still flushing. Okay, it's done now. And we got, again, 200. So we have the artificial hard limit of 200 before it finally stops. Thank you for joining me, and please visit rodmarkblog.com for more information.